Hello and welcome to A New Day with Susan. I'm your host, Susan Yockey, and today I have with me Cornelia Ward. She's an author of Divine Career and Business Coach. I shouldn't say of. She is an author and is a divine career and business coach who helps people love Mondays, and which is exciting because I love Mondays. I think they're awesome. And what does that mean? Well, 80% of Americans wake up each morning dragging themselves to a job each day that's just not working for them. And Cornelia thinks this is completely crazy. She works with lightworkers to create a transition plan into a career or business that really lights them up, so they're excited to get back to work on Monday. She has a master's degree in community economic development, a background in financial services, and has been trained by best-selling author Doreen Virtue as an intuitive, and has been helping people reach their career and business goals for over 15 years now. Her book, Go Forward Fearlessly, supports people in successfully navigating career and other major life transitions. You can download the book for free at her website, www.ihelppeoplelovemondays.com. And you can find more about Cornelia by visiting her Facebook group, Passion and Purpose, Create a Career You Love community. It's a great place for people who want to make the world a better place to gather, connect, and get inspired to do the work they are meant to do. And that is you can find out more about that at www.createacareeryouLove.com. So welcome, Cornelia, and thank you so much for being on my show. I'm super excited about having you and what you're going to share with us today.
Thanks, Susan. Really fun to be here.
Thank you. So what is it that you do? Well, first, let me actually ask you, what inspired you to do the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think you mentioned I used to be a broker in financial services until about 10 years ago. And I really crashed and burned in that job. That may be familiar to people who are watching. And if so, I'm sorry, but I've been there. And what happened was I felt like I was leaving the real me at home when I left to go to work in the morning. I certainly didn't love Mondays. And I was so out of alignment with my values that I actually ended up getting really, really depressed and got so sick that I had to leave my job. And then from there, I knew I really had to be self-employed. I had to focus on self-care for a while so that I could kind of have the bandwidth to get my business going. But then I was able to identify my life purpose and also help other people with the 10 steps to create a business that they love without a website, which is all, my life experience has basically turned into my career.
Nice. That's beautiful. And, and that's just it. It probably fuels you knowing that there's many, many people out there like yourself who are currently dealing with depression or just not enjoying the work that they're doing because they're living the so-called dream of the white picket fence, get a corporate, college degree and get into working and then work your butt off. So I think that is inspiring what you do.
Thank you. No, it's really, really fun.
I bet. And do you have any, good thing I can cut some of the stuff out. My question for you is, what are the 10 steps that you're using with your clients that has them waking up and loving Mondays?
Yeah, no, really fun. So this is basically the strategy to bring in a steady flow of clients in your business. It's really great for coaches, healers, and intuitives, but anybody with a service-based business can use it. I have a really strong business background, but when I first started my coaching business 10 years ago, I really struggled to bring in a steady flow of new clients. The life coaching field was going through a lot of changes, and all the marketing that I was learning about how to do, none of it was working because it was kind of this old paradigm. Things were really shifting about 10 years ago. And so what I had to do is kind of struggle because I wasn't going back to my job, right? It was making me sick.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of figure out my own system, if you will, or formula for bringing in a steady flow of new clients. So the fun thing is, a lot of us who are spiritually oriented as entrepreneurs, we get really stuck with the technology. Like we just don't like technology. And, to think about actually getting clients without a website sounds like, like a dream, right? So, yeah. So do you want me to go through the 10 steps?
Well, actually, you brought up another question that came up for me. What is the old paradigm that you're speaking of?
I wasn't in life coaching before 10 years ago. That's when I started my business. But from what I understand, life coaches used to be able to just have clients who would come see them a couple times a month. And there wasn't necessarily a real focus or a real end game or end result to what they were coaching about. That's kind of my perception. And, we were in the middle of a financial crisis, right? And so I think people were, they were willing to pay money to get support to reach their goals, but they needed to know it was going to work and it needed to be specific.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to know what steps to take to get there. So I don't know, if you ask somebody who'd been in coaching longer than me, they might have a different answer. But, it was the middle of the financial crisis, and, a lot of things kind of had changed during that period.
Yeah, I would agree. And so you're saying that you actually don't have a website.
No, I don't have a traditional website.
How are you finding your clients?
Well, by implementing the 10 steps.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'm going to let you take that away. I'd love to find out how you're doing it without a website.
Yeah, and feel free to jump in if you have questions, okay? But let me just clarify what I'm defining as a website. So I'm defining a website as just kind of a standalone website where you go to someone's website and you can see their bio and their programs and their background and that whole thing. So I do not have a traditional website. I do, however, have, because we're going to, you just shared it with people, right? I have an opt-in page that has my book in one of my programs as kind of a juicy freebie. So I don't consider those websites. I consider them opt-in pages or marketing funnels.
Okay.
But those are, I guess where I'm coming from is for someone who, for instance, is starting a business or they're struggling to get their website done and they just want to help people, and get away from behind the computer. What I'm trying to say is you don't need a traditional static website, and you don't need the funnels, the marketing funnels like I just taught. You don't need either of those. I happen to have both because I happen to have the opt-ins because I'm further along now in my business. So once you create this foundation with the 10 steps, then from there, if you want to go wider and start speaking, like on your show, that kind of thing, then the opt-in pages can come in. But initially, just getting the business going and bringing in the clients is the focus. And you don't need to spend a lot of time or a lot of money on a traditional website. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, it's very clear. Yep.
Yeah. So, okay, so let me do the 10 steps. So the first step is actually self-care. And this one's pretty fun because instead of putting all your time and energy into a website, if you put time and energy into your personal self-care when it comes to your emotional, physical, spiritual self-care, so that you have that high energy you need in order to be of service to your clients and build your business, that's a marketing strategy from my point of view. That's the strong foundation from which to build your business. And I would go so far because I've walked with clients through these 10 steps, and we'll be halfway through and they'll hit a wall, and it'll be because they forgot to continue to implement the self-care piece, right? So So that's why the self-care is key. So from my point of view, if you don't have the self-care nailed down in the beginning,
Yeah.
especially if you're a spiritual entrepreneur that's highly sensitive, many of us are, then, I really think it's going to be really hard to build a sustainable business where you can really depend on your income and know that you're going to help people. So that's the first step.
When I'm going to go ahead and jump in. When you're talking about the self-care piece, I think obviously that probably maybe doesn't ever show up for people, or they start to think about that or learn about that midway. But when you're talking about implementing that self-care, people have a challenge with that because they might think it's selfish. I'm taking away from my family. There's a lot of things that I know for myself personally that have come up around that topic itself, especially when it comes to business. And how do you implement it so that it's a flow? And because you're basically you're creating a habit, a routine of something.
Right.
And do you have like a process that you're showing people how to do this, or what would you recommend people in implementing that process?
Yeah, well, people can definitely take a look at my book at ihelppeoplelovemondays.com. They can download it there for free. The whole first chapter's on self-care. There's actually part of the self-care chapter is talking about kind of a consistent morning schedule and a consistent evening schedule. The other thing that we as entrepreneurs can do, because we're thinking, oh, I've got to work on this project, right? As opposed to like going for a swim or going for a walk outside. Yeah. And so if you can think about self-care as a marketing strategy where it's going to give you the high energy you need in order to bring to the work you're doing and how you're helping people, then that's a way to kind of shift your mindset around your goals.
Right. I love that. Because when people, I totally get that, because you're looking at it from the point of view of like, it's extra work, it's going to take time away from what I'm up to. Yeah, I so can see that. You're just, like you said, shifting or reframing that mindset, giving it a new context to come from. That's beautiful, especially for women, because we're constantly doing stuff. We have all these many things that we're juggling, and we always forget about taking care of ourselves. So that's beautiful.
Yeah. And in the modeling, if you have kids, huge modeling, right? Huge. Yeah. Okay. That's the first step. The second step is identifying the specific problem you want to help people with and the specific result. It's really like a lot of healers and coaches, especially in the beginning, will, because we have so many tools, right, to help people with, and we pretty much can help people with almost, really almost anything, because those tools are so powerful. But, when people ask somebody that's new, they'll often talk about like, what do you do? What's your business about? As a healer might talk extensively like about all their tools, right?
Yeah.
And that person doesn't really get a sense of, so why would someone go to you? What's the specific problem, right, that you solve? If you think of any business out there, every business that's successful has a specific problem. So, my business is, I help people love Mondays, right?
Yeah.
So it's very specific. It's for people who don't love Mondays.
I love that.
So that would be an example. Okay, that's step 2. Step 3 is where you do market research interviews. So if you pretend like you're doing a scientific experiment, where step 2, you're identifying the problem that you think people are having, that, people you can help. That's your hypothesis. And then the third step is like you're going into the lab and you're collecting data to test your hypothesis. So if my hypothesis is that, people are going to work on Monday mornings and they've got a pit in their stomach Sunday night, and it's causing a lot of people so much stress that they're getting sick. And then when I do my interviews, if I find out, like that statistic we talked about, right, 80% of Americans, if I find that 80% of my people in my market research interviews are saying that they don't like their jobs, I've kind of proved my hypothesis that that's a big problem that people have. Okay.
Right.
So those are the market research interviews. The fourth step is where you're all done with the interviews. You've got your data, your scientific experiment, and you look at your original problem in step 2 that you thought was keeping people up at night, and you tweak that depending on what people told you in the interviews to make sure you're kind of aligned with, because you want to build your business based on a specific need that people are telling you, is keeping them up at night.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the fourth step. And then the fifth step is actually a passion test. And the passion test is about, asking yourself, okay, well, this is what people said was keeping them up in the interviews when I talked to them. But what about me? Like, do I feel really passionate about helping people with that issue? And this really is about aligning to your life purpose, why you're here. Do your gifts and talents enable you to help people that are in that situation? And do you feel really excited about helping them with that? And that's in there because, I believe in order to be really fulfilled in the work that you do, it really needs to be aligned with your life purpose.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. Let's see. So the sixth step is actually where you start to build your tribe. And this is where you start, now that you're clear and you're really grounded in the problem that you can help people with. The sixth step is about starting to build your community and building relationships with people who have the problem that you're going to help. So an example of this would be like my Facebook group. It's called Passion and Purpose, Create a Career You Love. So people who go to that group want a career or a business that they love, right? So I'm building my community and I'm being of service to people in that group, answering questions. I actually did a Facebook Live today in the group. I provide lots of inspirational messages, a place where business owners can talk on Mondays about what it is that they do for work. So that would be an example of building your tribe.
Okay. Do you do it locally as well?
Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. Yeah,
okay.
there is a way to do that in person. And I'll talk about that when we get to the marketing. Perfect. That's a great question. Okay, and then the seventh step is about creating your services, your solutions. Okay. So a lot of new coaches, healers, and intuitives, what they will do is in the beginning, they will work with people, let's say one-to-one for an hour at a time, right? So they'll kind of the psychotherapy example, where, well, I'm not feeling so great, right? Like when I was depressed, I was seeing my therapist every week, right? But I was kind of driving it. It was up to me to pick up the phone or to say at the end of a session, yeah, I want to schedule next week, okay? So that is a very different model.
Yeah.
Then basically, you just did these interviews, right? In step 3, you found out what the issue was. It was keeping people up at night. So let's say, as just to give it another example, let's say it's somebody who has, you're like a health coach or like you're a health coach and you want to work with people who have chronic illness. Maybe they were just diagnosed by their regular doctor with diabetes, and it's kind of shocking, right, when we get a diagnosis like that. But then they don't want to go the traditional route. They just, for some, and this is different for everybody what it could look like, but in this case it could be someone, they just got the diagnosis of the chronic disease, and boy, they do not want to have to take the drugs because they just know that's going to affect their lifestyle and it's not really going to help them in the way they want to be helped. That's their perspective. And so they start looking for alternatives, right, to taking drugs. So when you have somebody that has a problem that's so major, they're losing sleep over it, and in this case, just diagnosed with a chronic disease, that's not just one session at a time. That's supporting that person over 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, even a year.
Right.
So that's where you as a service provider, like a coach, a healer, an intuitive, that's where you're able to, your client makes one decision one time in the beginning that yes, you're going to work together over 9 months. They don't have to make a financial decision every time they come see you. Okay.
Right.
So they make one
that
decision.
adds pressure if you think about it.
What's that?
That would add pressure to, if you think about it, every week you're thinking about, oh, is my insurance going to cover this? I really like you're changing or reframing how people look at a coach versus a therapist type of thing. Yeah.
But I've actually seen, actually that's an interesting thought, because I've actually worked with traditional therapists who have decided they, for instance, no longer want to take insurance. Yeah. And they're actually moving into more of a coaching, therapy practice, when actually they've been really doing coaching all along, right? Yeah. And actually these 10 steps is exactly how to make that happen. So that's actually nice. Yeah. So that would be, again, working with people over a period of time. So your clients are only making one decision, and rather than it being a decision about, okay, I'm going to go see my coach for an hour, it's going to cost me $100, rather than the investment being about the time spent, the hour, it's actually the investment, the financial investment for a result that they're looking to get over a period of time.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So, and it's much more fulfilling for our clients because they're getting the support they need. They're not staying stuck. And why are you in business if you're not trying to help people actually get results? That's right. And then for you, it's as the provider, the coach, the healer, the intuitive, you can see that person getting the results, and that just renews your satisfaction, your level of enjoyment in what you do, and it gives you meaning, right? It's you can have this impact on people. Yeah. The last piece around the packages over periods of time is actually about the finances. So instead of having $100 check hit the checking account, the bank account, once a week or every 2 weeks, or whenever the person decides to schedule. Instead, when you and a client commit to working together in the beginning, it's over a period of time, so it's a bigger investment. Okay, it's an investment in that result, right? And the amounts that are hitting your bank account are much larger. Yeah. Okay, so that enables you as a healer or intuitive or a coach to stay in business, because you got the cash flow moving in there so that you can take care of your own needs. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So those are the packages. And let's see, the 8th step is another passion test. This is the second one and the last one. And that's just about looking at step 7 at your packages and saying, okay, someone was just diagnosed with diabetes. They're looking at alternatives. Here are the steps I want to take them through in this sequence. Mm-hmm. And then what it is it's stepping back and saying, okay, here are the steps that I'm going to walk people through. Here are the tools I'm going to use in order to support them with that. And do I feel really passionate about walking them through the process? So that's another kind of check to make sure you feel excited about that. And then the 9th step is the outreach and marketing piece. And this is, don't let me forget about your question, because this is how you can build your tribe in person too. Okay, so there are 3 prongs that I recommend in terms of marketing. The first one is connecting with people one-to-one and being of service to them, whether they become clients or not. The second one is to form joint venture or collaborative partnerships with people who serve the same clientele. Like right now, you and I, Susan, right? We have similar audiences. Yeah. And so, there's something that I'm doing that's complementing what you do. And then we just talked about you coming in my Facebook group and doing a Facebook Live, right? So that's a way we can collaborate and support each other, but also help help our
Yeah.
market, help our tribe much more,
Right.
better as well. So that's the second one, the collaboration. The third one is actually through speaking. And this is the fastest way to bring in a steady flow of clients. Like if anybody is watching now, many of you probably are working like a full-time job or almost full-time, and you're trying to create your business on the side so that you can replace your current income with your job and move out of that and do your business full-time. Speaking is the fastest way to do that with the least amount of time, which of course you don't have a lot of when you're working full-time or even 30 hours a week in a job. So the way the speaking works, and it can be as few as 3 to 5 people. The way the speaking works is you offer a 2-hour free workshop, okay? Mine in the beginning, I think the first one I ever offered was how to find your life purpose so you can create a career you love. That was my talk. It was free. You want to give people an experience of who you are and how you work. And then at the end of the 2-hour workshop, I invited people to have a one-to-one conversation with me. So, I'm doing the speaking, and then I'm bringing them back to that one-to-one piece I just talked about. And then seeing if I can help them, seeing if it's a good fit, at least, giving them information, some tips of how to move forward. And then, if they're a good fit, then you offer to work with them over a period of time to get that long-term solution they're looking for.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, pretty fun. Speaking is great. And so in terms of building your tribe in person, the speaking strategy that I teach is actually an in-person workshop strategy. And that's actually I hadn't even thought of it this way before, Susan, until you asked that. But, I give a 2-hour free workshop, right? 15 people show up, okay? And not everybody becomes a client. Or maybe I have a monthly workshop and it's free, and people come month after month after month. And that happened to me for sure. And so you're building your tribe, and you're giving people the support they're looking for in person within the context of that group.
Okay. That's actually a beautiful idea that I had not even thought of. And I have all this experience in organizing events and work, I've done that kind of work. So I think that'll be a beautiful addition to what I'm up to.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And then the 10th step is actually enrolling new clients. So those are the 10 steps. No website.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. That's really great. And you're right. It really does, because I don't necessarily have a website, and I do opt-in pages. So, and I do get asked a lot. And do you get asked a lot of questions like, well, where's your website so I can check out more of you? Or do you get a lot of questions like that? Or
no, never from potential clients.
Nice.
Sometimes I've been interviewed on some telesummits, and occasionally someone will ask me, well, I didn't really find your website. I just saw the opt-in. And usually those are people that are fairly new to business, that are offering telesummits as kind of their entree into the business world. But more and more, I think a lot of people are, not using the website. Like my clients, if they want a placeholder, if you will, to send people, they can just create a free and easily put together Facebook page.
That's awesome. Well, and I was just doing some market research for the radio, and there's 1 billion users on Facebook, and 56% of those users actually buy product or view product from Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. So it's actually a huge market.
It is huge, and in a really beautiful way. To be of service to that group is to excuse me, is to people who are on social media is, for instance, to create the Facebook group, right?
Yeah,
And to be of service to people. And then, I mean, it depends, like it depends on kind of what your pricing is. But what we just talked about here, the packaging idea, I mean, it's different for everybody. But in general, like your lowest price package is probably going to be like $1,000, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that it's not really a low investment for somebody, right? So, and there are other people who there's a whole kind of funnel thing around products, right? And that's kind of a different conversation. But basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is by that 6th step around building your tribe, being of service to people, there's something like, like if you do a Facebook Live in your Facebook group, which are actually pretty fun. Mm-hmm. Another way of speaking, when you do that, I think it's like 6 or 7 times people see you on video and they feel like they know you really well, right? Like in Susan, your show, whether people are watching it video or listening to it, when they've been listening to you for a while, they feel as if they actually know you, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when you're kind of giving people an experience of who you are, how you think, what you may be able to offer them. And then it's from that place that people will be, with a one-to-one conversation, pretty amenable to working with you and making a larger investment.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you've just given me access to seeing it from a different perspective or a different point of view versus it's just all this extra work. It's electronic. So that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
And so do you travel around and because I know you said you do workshops. Are you traveling around speaking or giving workshops? What are you doing?
Yeah, you can do that. I don't. I mean, the workshops that I give are local. Nice. Or else they're in my Facebook group. So I don't really travel much. I have a dog who's under my desk right now with one ear up. So,
like,
it's
where are you going?
She's probably listening. Maybe she's thinking about starting a business.
All right.
So anyway, and my lifestyle is such that I live in a very nice place, and I love being here, and my dog doesn't like it when I leave because she's pretty shy around other people, and I don't know, it just makes it easier. So you can really have the best of both worlds. And by the way, Susan, what I'll say is there may be people thinking, well, I live in a really small town, like who's going to show up? My town, I live in Burlington, Vermont. There's like 40,000 people who live here. And the first workshop I did, 15 people showed up.
Nice.
And which was a pretty good turnout for a small town. 5 of them were already clients. And 9 out of the 10 people left who weren't my clients became clients within 30 days. And from that 1 2-hour workshop, I made like $8,000.
Wow. That's amazing.
So it doesn't matter where you live. So if you live in New York or a larger area, you could probably go from like neighborhood to neighborhood and have a great, just have them repeat it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and when you were talking about that, I instantly, because I'm an expert in network marketing. So, as well as being a transformation mindset coach. So what immediately came to my mind when you said that is you get people who are asking you, well, how do I do it with just a small town? I would invite you to actually consider that as coming from a place of fear and procrastination, or, what is that belief that's actually, because it really doesn't matter where you're at in the world. If you are passionate about what you love, then you're going to do whatever it takes to make it happen, for even if it's a small percentage in your community, because you'll grow from that. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, is there anything that you would like to leave the listeners to today, or viewers, because this is also going to be on the YouTube channel as well? Anything that you want to leave them with? Well,
there's a couple things. So we were going to do a freebie, right? Do we want to do the freebie too?
you have a freebie, go for it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's a pretty juicy freebie, I have to say. But what I'll say before I share the freebie is that being an entrepreneur, it can be kind of a challenging journey.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important for each of us to get grounded in the work we're meant to do. Wake up each morning, read your life purpose statement, which, by the way, there's a chapter, Go for Your Life Purpose, in my book where people can do their own statement.
Yeah.
And just know that the work you're meant to do here in the world is really, really important. And what will happen is, and Susan, I don't know if this happens to you, because here you've got your own show, right? But any of us who are meant to help a lot of people in the world and bring a lot of light to the world, we live in this sometimes unpleasant duality, right? Mm-hmm. There's light, there's dark, there's cold, there's hot, right? So, so with the lower energy, what I call the lower energy, will do, especially if we're meant to help a lot of people, like radio show, you're writing a book, Facebook group, whatever it is. If you're meant to help a lot of people, the lower energy will get into your head, or there may be other ways that the lower energy will sometimes even use other people to pull you off your path. And so if the fear comes up, if the voices come up in your head, just tell yourself you're on the right path. You're going outside your comfort zone. You're clear what your life purpose is. This is your business, and that's what you're supposed to be doing. And then just get the support that you need, so you don't get pulled off your path. I can't say that enough.
Yeah, I have that experience every so often. Mine shows up for me physically, and my energy level will just almost plateau. And that's where I'll actually go and do some of that self-care and take care of myself, because I know, we're up to something big here and we need to keep moving here. But what I wanted to add to that is something that I also know very well, is when you're passionately working, I don't want to even say working, it's just you're doing it. You're living it. And what happens is that fear or that low vibe energy will show up in the form of putting stuff in your way, like other people's programs or all these different freebies. You don't want to get over or obsessive about it. It's okay. I'm not saying not to look at that stuff, because there's a lot of great stuff that you could pull from it and help yourself grow. Because if you're not growing, you're not learning, you're not growing. So, but what I'm saying is, don't become obsessive about it. I experienced that too in the beginning of my business, where I was so just obsessed about learning all this stuff, and it became so overwhelming, and it brought on a lot of stress and anxiety. But I needed to learn that for myself so that I could help my clients through that kind of stuff, but I'm letting people know now, don't get caught up in that, because that is a form of taking you off your path.
Yeah, there's a couple things about that. Like it depends on kind of what's driving that in the beginning. Like, I felt really like I wasn't well qualified to be a coach. And, that really wasn't true, because I've been doing it for so long. So that can be kind of a driver for, looking for more information so that you can feel comfortable and confident. But of course, that time will likely not ever come. And then the other thing is that the lower energy is really sneaky. And it'll know, like, if you love to learn, it'll be like, oh, I know how to pull her off her path. I know what to do. I'm going to throw all these little, like, red shiny objects at Susan. And, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it just knows.
I'm one of those. I have to really pay attention to that for me.
Yeah. And then, do you want me to share the freebie?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. So the freebie's pretty yummy, and I just wanted to give your audience kind of this special gift, because we've been talking about how important it is to do the work we're meant to do. I just gave the 10 steps, and I'm sure a lot of you don't really want to create the website. If you do, that's great. Go for it. Just don't let it distract you from
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
But I have a program that's called Passion and Purpose in Business, 10 Steps to Create a Business You Love. It's a home study program. It has $1,000 value, but I keep adding to it as I learn more stuff. So it's probably worth a lot more by now anyway.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that I'm gifting that program, the 10 steps we just talked about,
Yeah.
that formula is right there in that program, as well as what you do after the 10 steps. You got the clients coming in.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to build my list. I want to speak on telesummits. I want to do Facebook Lives. It's all kind of there. So it's a really, really fun gift.
That's that's a beautiful gift because, you know, and I think that's what people need is something that's a little more step by step, because a lot of content can be overwhelming. So it sounds like you're pulling your best stuff and you're saying, here you go. This is a step by step guide. So that's awesome. And it's so generous. Thank you for contributing to our viewers, our listeners. Me personally, I'm going to check it out. I'm especially interested in the piece self-care, because I'm driven. I'm a driven person, and I have a very high resilience to stress. And what happens is I will push myself to the limit. And so I think definitely for me, take a look at that self-care piece so that I make sure that I continue to implement those things.
Yeah,
I know it's all about daily habits, and but what happens is I get pulled off of my self-care and become so focused or entrenched in a project or something, and then I'll put my self-care off. So I'll be looking for some tips on that.
Yeah, no, that I'm glad that's helpful. Yeah, I'm thinking that can help a lot of people.
Yeah.
The one other thing I wanted to mention is people can go, I think you've got the link for the business program. I'm hoping that you have that. And people can go sign up for the program, and then they'll actually get an invitation from me to schedule a complimentary life purpose reading and review, so that I can do actually life purpose reading for them, an intuitive reading, channeled kind of reading.
Nice.
And then also we can look at the program and go, okay, you've got the program now. Here's where you are in your business. Here's where I recommend you start.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. Wow, that is very generous, actually. So, well, thank you so much, Cornelia, for being on my show. And I want to thank the listeners and the viewers for showing up today. And I would love to find out what you took away from this interview today. And you're welcome to comment, feedback. And I want you to stay tuned, because I'm coming up with a new strategy that will give the listeners an opportunity to actually come into these interviews with us, so that you can ask questions live. So stay tuned for that. And I will be posting Cornelia's information so that you can get access to learning more about her and what she's out there creating in the world. So, and just thank you again, Cornelia.
Thank you, Susan, and good luck to everybody.
Yes, good luck.